Monaco 64 here, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This is an impromptu live stream. I've decided to talk about what's going on in the world. I'm very confused. A lot of contradictory things going on, geopolitically, economically, and I guess the term that's used could be cognitive dissonance. Just getting people very confused. Maybe some kind of distraction mechanism by the powers that be. And what could that mean? That's what I wanted to talk about in this live stream. What could all this fog, geopolitical, economic fog, uncertainty mean? It could be a huge distraction to keep people looking at away from really important events. I don't know what they're going to be. The events could be monetary, political, economic, financial. It's hard to say. I think we will only know 10, 15 years from now, if something happens in the next few months, we'll only really know the ins and outs of what's going on in the future. Because we're not privy to all that goes on behind the scenes. We've got Tracy Stark from Seoul, South Korea. Nice to see you, Tracy. Good to see you here. Yeah, usually I don't do my live stream at this time, but I'm on my own with Billy in the house, and I'm going out later for dinner with my wife. It's our 25th wedding anniversary, so it's a long time. My wife jokes that the joke is you get more time for murder than 25 years. Edward Bryan from New York. Good morning, Edward. Yeah, quite early over there, just after 6 a.m. Here it's 11 a.m. London. Good morning from Camden. I'm sorry, I can't read that. I assume that looks Chinese to me. You keep catching me out on these. Well, not this one, James. You're here. So cognitive dissonance, that's what I'll start now. There's 21 people on. I'm really confused. Maybe you guys know something more than I do. But for example, InfoWars was banned on YouTube, on Apple, I think on iTunes, and I've watched InfoWars even before there was YouTube. I listened to Alex Jones years ago. A lot of the things he says I completely agree with. He can be a little bit obnoxious and everything, but lately a lot of people have been criticizing him because he's behind Trump on everything Trump does, even if you don't agree with it. A lot of people think he's like a Zionist. And first of all, I like to say this is not about religion here. It's more about geopolitics and what's going on. Yeah, a lot of people are saying, oh, Alex Jones is a Zionist. He's pro-Israeli. But if he is a Zionist, then why would, the Zionists or who are supposed to be in charge of the globalists and everything, why would they ban him, right? So that's confusing to me. The other confusing thing that's going on is here in the UK with the opposition party, the Labour Party. There's a campaign to basically get rid of Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party. They keep going on about how he's anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist, right? So they're trying to get rid of him. But on the other hand, Alex Jones is supposed to be pro-Zionist, but they're trying to get rid of him as well. So to me, that's all really confusing. And yeah, the other confusing stuff that's going on is with Iran, right? If Trump is so pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, he's helping, he's moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He's going against the Iranians, who are supposedly the enemies of Israel. Why isn't the mainstream media, who's supposed to be, how can I say, controlled by the globalists and the Zionists, why aren't they like supporting Trump? Uh, it's very confusing to me. I think it's just trying to distract us from a major event. I don't know what it's going to be. It could be economic and financial. Maybe you guys have a better, explanation. But to me, it seems like we're all pawns in a kind of game. They want to keep us distracted with all what's going on geopolitically, economically, with Iran, the petro yuan, the debt in the U.S., the taxes, tax cuts, the Federal Reserve. But I bet you behind the scenes they're planning something huge, and I don't know what it is. So let's see, we've got a few more people here. Tracy, do you think cryptos will suffer the same fate as gold and silver? A false removal of scarcity that results in low prices despite the real situation. That's a good question, Tracy. I spoke in my video this morning about a story that came out that I got a notification from Seeking Alpha saying that sources at Bloomberg News were saying that Goldman was looking to become a custodian for cryptocurrencies in order to encourage big institutions to go into cryptos, because institutions don't trust cryptocurrencies, but they would trust Goldman Sachs, which is ironic to me. But what that could mean as well, if we see Wall Street banks becoming custodians for cryptos, that means they can lend out those cryptos, even though they're safekeeping it for you. They do that with stocks, commodities, gold. They could lend it out many times over, especially from London, and they could start manipulating the cryptocurrency prices. I'm not saying that's going to happen overnight, because the news on Goldman is just a rumor, kind of sources are saying that. So it's not even a done deal yet. But eventually, in a few years or so, they could be in control. And that would be a shame, because I think cryptos are supposed to replace Wall Street and the corrupt system of fiat money. We'll have to keep an eye on it, though. Just like with gold and silver, they've kind of hijacked it, the bullion banks, the ETFs, and that's why it's important to have physical, and that's why it's important to keep your cryptos in your own hard wallet. But I'm sure there will be the Johnny-come-latelys, the public that will be encouraged by the Wall Street banks to get into cryptos, and they're gonna most of the time, I would say, be too lazy to buy a Trezor wallet or any other hard wallet. They'll just buy the mutual fund, the crypto fund. It will be much easier for them, and that's a shame. And that's why we need to keep we need to keep vigilant about these things and warn people, and that's what I'm trying to do. Drew84, save your videos on an external hard drive so you're able to reinstall your account if you get banned. Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten any strikes or anything, but you never know. I don't have like millions of subscribers like Alex Jones, so I'm under the radar. Are you welcome, Tracy Stark? This is cool. Hey, Echo, will we ever see another leader running for office like Ron Paul? Not in the foreseeable future. It's unfortunate that Ron Paul is over. I think he's 82. If he was a bit younger, he could still be running. I think he would do well. I think the Tea Party movement was hijacked by Donald Trump. I'm not really sure yet about Donald Trump. Deep down, I think he's just a puppet of the globalists. Yeah, he's a good actor, that guy. He did a program on television. He did quite well with that. So I'm not sure. I know there's a lot of patriots out there that are pro-Trump. He says all the right things. Oh, we're doing this for America, imposing tariffs. But in the end of the day, more debt will not make America great again. More debt will make America more miserable, in my opinion, more and more debt. And that's what he's doing. His economic policies are creating more and more deficits, more national debt. And I don't think it will end well, personally. If he was a real patriot and he wanted to make America great again, he would go back to the Constitution, sound money. He would try to abolish the Federal Reserve. What else would he do? He wouldn't be trying to provoke countries like Iran. He would be withdrawing troops. Right now, he would be, maybe he's trying to do that. Maybe he's trying to destroy NATO by asking them to pay more. But why does he need to do that? Why don't we, just get out there? I know he has a lot of internal opposition. The deep state, of course, is very powerful. Maybe I'm being too naive. It's not that easy to go and drain the swamp, so to speak. But I'm not too sure about him. Is he better than Hillary? Maybe. Or maybe he's just like a Trojan horse. He used to say that the economy was a bubble. The stock market was a giant bubble before he got elected. And to say that it isn't a giant bubble now, I'm sorry, it's just like disingenuous. H-cone Bitcoin is a beta test that just went better than expected. Yeah, some people think that the globalists, the powers that be, are actually created cryptocurrencies, and they're having it developed for them for free, basically, because all these developers have an incentive. They're making money, and that it's cheaper to do it like this through the back door. We'll see. I don't know, but that's why I'm still holding on to my silver and my gold. And I have some cryptocurrencies, but you never know. Yeah, so it's all very confusing. I was talking, for those who are coming on to the live stream now, I was saying how I'm really confused right now about all what's happening in the world. You have Alex Jones being banned, SGP report being banned. A lot of people saying Alex Jones is a pro-Zionist, pro-Israel. And at the same time, we're told that the globalists are Zionists and that the globalists are anti-Trump. But at the same time, they ban Alex Jones. I'm confused. But here in the UK, you have someone who's anti-Semitic, supposedly anti-Semitic, the leader of the Labour Party, who's anti-Israel. He's been, they're trying to force him out of the power from the Labour Party as the Labour Party leader. So it's all confusing. Also, Trump, who's supposed to be anti-globalist, he's doing Israel's bidding by being very anti-Iran. We saw the sanction that just was activated at midnight New York time today. The Iran can't use US dollars. Iran can't use gold. And then in November, the sanctions will be activated on oil. And the European Union, who's supposed to be a globalist project, they've gone and said, they've passed a law saying that European EU companies cannot follow the American sanctions. It's against the law. So it's all very confusing to me. And it's cognitive dissonance. I think it's trying to get people not thinking straight, not really watching, distracting them from the really important subject. And in my opinion, the really important subject is the debt, global debt. All the debt that's been creating, and the fact that we can't sustain that debt anymore. And that's why we need to keep our eye on the ball. We need to stop the division that we have about this and that religion and so on and so forth, and focus on yourself and your family and protect yourself. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, live within your means. Try not to buy into the brainwashing of television, mainstream media. Have some physical gold and silver, maybe some cryptos and other things that you do. There are preppers out there. I'm not a prepper, but if you're looking to do that, there's a lot of people there who advise on that. So that's why I'm doing this live stream. So I think, like William Guy Carr, I recommend this book as well, Pawns in the Game. We're only pawns in the game of the globalists, the people in charge. And the other thing that I think is going on is war is a racket. Sometimes it looks like the US and Russia, or the EU and Russia, or Britain and Russia are enemies, but sometimes they're just fake enemies, and they're just like building each other up so they can have a war and make more money. So that's what I think is going on. Hopefully there won't be a war, but let's see if you guys have any more questions. No need to. H. Cone, Kennedy got assassinated and Reagan got shot when they tried doing their own thing. Yeah, some people argue, like the guy who shot Reagan, Hinckley, he was the son of a good friend of Papa Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush. So yeah, they gave him a signal right away in 1981, didn't they? James Scott, they have till 2021 when LIBOR goes. They need North Korea and Iran to get central banks, YouTube, Facebook. But yeah, this story about LIBOR, I'm not too sure. They're phasing LIBOR out, but LIBOR is only a reference rate. And even when I was working in the city a few, 6 years now, LIBOR was already not that important. I used to have a client who used to set LIBOR for one of the big banks. And I spoke to him a few years ago, and he said LIBOR is not really important anymore. And that was 2-3 years ago. So I'm not too sure about LIBOR, if it's that important. Yeah, Gene Maddox, that's a good point. It seems like a lot of turmoil is taking place all at once, just so no one party or individual will be blamed for what is inevitable. That could be it. A lot of mayhem everywhere, and no one will take the blame. We know that the people to blame, in my opinion, are the central banks and the politicians. But the politicians, they've created the system 100 years ago. So, it's like a revolving door. Yeah, the people, they're going after Trump, who's just, in my opinion, a puppet. They're going after Jeremy Corbyn, Theresa May, the EU, and the guys in charge, really, who we don't know, who are in control of the banks, be them whatever religion. I don't want to touch on religion, and people do, but it doesn't really matter. They're, the old black nobility or whatever, they're just like laughing, at the public. And they will do well, even if everything implodes. They'll be protected, and they'll probably scoop up even more assets from the unsuspecting public. Yes, Gary, gold and silver are up today, which is quite pleasant to see. We've had a tough time. Smugman Manako, can I ask you why you decided to stay in the UK? It's bloody awful. Are you in the UK, Smugman? Well, I grew up in Brazil. I went to university in the States, in Switzerland. I lived in Switzerland, decided to come work in London in 1992, so 26 years ago. Yeah, I've done all right in the UK. I know there's a lot of things that I don't like that goes on here, but compared to other countries, and I've been around before. I've lived in Switzerland, I've lived in Brazil, I lived in the US. I think the UK is not a bad place, especially compared to Brazil. As far as Switzerland, Switzerland is a nice country, but it's not where I wanted to live. And my family is here now. So there you have it. And the thing is, if you know what's going on, you can benefit from uh, the crisis as well. And that's what I try to do. Uh, Even if there's problems in the UK, you could do well. And I still think it's a good place to live in the UK. I'm not in the inner cities, so that's a plus. Great, Vince. Do you have any comment on what's happening in Turkey? Well, the only thing I've seen in Turkey is about their currency getting, hit hard quite a bit. Um, there was that coup in Turkey a couple of years ago. It's a funny one, Turkey. I don't know. Turkey, it's a funny place. So I couldn't tell you any more about Turkey. Uh, I don't think. I mean, a few years ago, people were saying that Turkey wanted to join the EU. I don't think they will ever join the EU. I don't really think they're like culturally European. And I guess they're part of NATO, right? So yeah, I think they play both sides. They play like the Russians and Chinese and NATO, the Turks. I've never been there and don't really plan to go to Turkey. Not that I don't like Turkish people or anything. I don't know many Turkish people. I know friends who go to Turkey on holidays, but I'll pass. Uh, Chris Collier, we have political and economic madness, but how can the world's climate be going nuts as well? Well, I think nowadays when you have like a summer that's really hot, like a heat wave, everyone gets a bit over the top. Climate change. Even the Economist magazine for the latest one, I saw something about climate change and the weather because of the heat wave in Europe. But we had a heat wave here in the UK in 1976, just as bad. So if we keep having these heat waves like we have this summer for the next 4 or 5 years, every year, then I will probably say something is going on. But I think this is just a one-off. This is the way the climate goes. Gregory KH. Hi, hey Gregory from Shanghai in China. Nice. So a place I haven't been to, China. I was in Hong Kong long time ago. I was only a little boy. I think I was about 9 or 10. Hong Kong was still part of the British, of the UK. Now it's an autonomous region, but it was an interesting place. I know a lot has changed in China since then. Philip Ward Monaco, do you believe we are being attacked economically here in the UK? Well, yeah, the UK's been, the general public has been attacked, in my opinion, Philip, since 1914. And why do I say that? Well, World War One completely destroyed the monetary system of the UK, and the general public has been raped financially since then because we haven't had sound money since then. We haven't gone back to a sound money system, and World War One was the excuse. Yeah, sometimes things get better and they get worse. Right now, I think all the largesse of the new Labour government from 1997 to 2010, all that largesse of public spending, and it bankrupted the country. And the bankers were involved as well. And that's what we're paying for now in the UK. We've got too much debt, unfortunately. Publicly, the government, the consumer has a lot of debt, and all the corporations have a lot of debt. And yeah, it's not good. And we've lived, I think, in the UK beyond our means as well. We've been encouraged to do that. because it keeps the fiat money system going. So yeah, we have been attacked economically. You just have to be careful not to buy into the propaganda. And what do I mean by that? Well, all the adverts you see, do this and that, uh, borrow, car loans, everything. You need to try to, I'm not saying you need to stop living, but you need to be aware of that they want you to stay in debt. But it's not only here in the UK, Western Europe, US, everywhere in the world. Even in China, I'm reading now that the millennials in China are building huge amount of credit card debt. So it's everywhere. So this is not about nationality, it's about individuals. And that's why I like to focus on the individual, on the system, monetary system, and put everything aside. So that's my answer to you, Philip. Jerry 2828 Kelly 2021. Any loans that were previously set on the LIBOR will have to be reset with a new rate. Yeah, but it's already being done right now. So a lot of these LIBOR, a lot of these loans and contracts and derivatives, uh, they're written like for a year or 6 months, and they base it on 3-month LIBOR, 6-month LIBOR. So they can change that anytime, and they're changing it already. So I don't think it will be a nightmare. I think there's too much being uh, said about that personally. Gene Maddox, grand solar minimum could be the cause for weather pattern extremes, but if pursuit food production will suffer. Yeah, I think that could be something. I've read something about that, and even yeah, you might think solar minimum would mean less sun, but it actually affects all the climate, and it could actually make the summers hotter. JJ Monaco, can you give your opinion on YouTube banning Alex Jones? Well, I had a look at his because I subscribe, and I had a look at his channel, and he had all the strikes. That's the reason they gave. Some people think it's political, that it's the just before the midterm elections, and they don't want the alternative political voice out there. Some people, that's what Paul Joseph Watson said. He wrote an article about that, and he says that the reason why Trump came to power was because of InfoWars and the alternative media. So they're trying to crack down just before the midterm elections. That could be it. But then you'd think Trump has been very pro-Israel, and Israel is supposed to be the seat of globalists and Zionists, right? And at the same time, how can I say, the tech companies, Silicon Valley, the US mainstream media, they're supposed to be controlled by the Zionists as well. So it's all very confusing. And that's why the title of this live stream is Economic and Geopolitical Fog, because I'm confused. I think they're just trying to confuse us. I personally think what's going to happen, they're going to come out in a week or a few days or 2 weeks, and they're going to reinstate the InfoWars channel on YouTube, and it's going to make Alex Jones even more popular. So you never know. It's like with SGT Report. I know they're much smaller, but they've been reinstated on YouTube. So I wouldn't be surprised if InfoWars comes back on YouTube. So that's my view. I'm confused. I've listened to Alex Jones even before he was on YouTube for many years, and a lot of the things he says, I agree with him, but he's become a little bit too political. He used to be more libertarian, apolitical, but he seems to be just now taking sides, and I don't think that's good. but I still listen to him sometimes. PJB954, your opinion would be appreciated on what the Australian economy will look like in the unforeseeable future. Well, Australia, is one of those economies that supposedly they haven't had a recession for like almost 30 years. But I've been reading that some of the real estate markets there are starting to come off. The other thing about Australia is that you're close to Asia, and you get a lot of investment from China, Korea, Japan. So, but to be honest, if there is a crisis in the West and the world, there will also be one in Australia. But I can't really, I don't know well enough about the Australian economy to tell you, where I see it in a few years. Uh, if there isn't any crisis, I think Australia is a lot like the US, the UK, and Europe. A lot of consumer debt. Uh, yeah, and that's pushed as well on the people. If anything, I would say in the future things will change, and people will have to probably live more within their means, even in Australia, which is supposed to be the land of plenty, right? The old song from Men at Work, I think. Colombia. You mean Colombia? Colombia is a university, right, Azur? You mean Colombia, the country with an O? Colombia is being used as a proxy by the U.S. and Israel to overthrow Venezuela. Yeah, it's really easy to blame the U.S. For what's happening in Venezuela, but and it could be true. But I think Venezuela has probably also been mismanaged. But the U.S. hasn't made it easy either. Yeah, Colombia with an O. Yeah, that's a lot of people misspell because Colombia in South America was with an O. Colombia is completely something completely different. Uh, yeah, Alex is just another part of the confusion machine now. I think he has. I don't know if he's done it on purpose or if he's just there to do that. Unfortunate. James, as that is true in regards to real estate. My family member who lives in Australia has lost 30% of his property value. Hey, don't worry, Azur, about the spelling. It's one of the things that gets me when people that Colombia and Columbia. That's like even in the papers here in the UK. Sometimes they read and they talk about Colombia, and they write it Columbia, which is which is wrong. But it's like if someone wrote Britain as Brittany, which is like a region in France, the British wouldn't be happy. But I'm not even. I've never been to Colombia, by the way, and I don't really care that much. This is cool. Do you see a bubble popping anytime soon? If so, which industries do you have see bubbles that are about to? Well, I think the biggest bubble really is still Wall Street, the FANG stocks, the banks, uh, yeah, the stock market. The stock market, the only reason it's up is all because of all the buybacks. Um, but there could be something else. You never know. Definitely not gold and silver because it's not in the bubble, right? Yeah, I agree with you, Azur, about the disinformation about Venezuela. It's never black and white, all the things that are going on there. I think it was Chavez in 2011. He took out all the physical gold that Venezuela had with the Bank of England, and that was just before gold went from like 1200, 1300 to almost 2000. That was during that period. So Venezuela took all its physical gold from the Bank of England and shipped it back to Venezuela. And I think ever since then, he died a year or two after, uh, suspicious circumstances. And then you've had this nightmare since then, economically for them. So, and the other thing that happened, I think, they took that gold and leased it to Goldman Sachs, which was a huge mistake. So all that gold is probably gone now. So very stupid as well. Um, these guys, they need some good advice, and they're not getting it. James asks, will rates continue to rise? Yeah, I think they will. They're going to raise rates. I think the Wall Street banks, they see the Fed funds rate up to like 3.25% by the end of next year. Right now, I think we are at 1.75 to 2%. So they expect another two hikes this year and maybe three next year. So it could tip everything over. Because yeah, on one hand, they keep cheerleading, saying that the U.S. economy is doing really well and that the labor market's really tight, and that's why they're raising rates. But we all know that that's a lie about the economy doing really well. So I think it could. I think they're looking to. They've done the pump. They're looking for the dump. And you might ask, why would they want to do that? Well, because that's their game. And they've been doing it since, over 100 years. This is cool. Have you ever gotten to medicinal silver, colloidal silver? Yeah, I did have colloidal silver years ago, over 10 years ago. I don't use it anymore. Maybe I should. Uh, Actually, Alex Jones, yeah, 10 years ago, he got me into that. He used to talk a lot about colloidal silver, but now he's into these male vitality stuff. I don't really all the other stuff he's selling. He used to also advise people to buy precious metals. He used to be a big critic of the Federal Reserve as well, but I don't see him criticizing the Fed anymore. Mark Richards, hi Echo. I'm saving to buy my first home in Australia, but lately an interest in gold and silver. Would you recommend spending some of my savings on precious metals? Well, a home is important, right? You got to live somewhere. So if after you've moved wherever you want to move, and you have some money left, yeah, start saving your money in precious metals. But don't just uh, take your money and buy precious metals and, how can I say, ignore your your living necessities. I think that's the most important thing, is have a roof over your head. And if you got something left over, then you look into gold and silver. Definitely. Philip Ward, Monaco, can you recommend a reputable precious metal storage facility in mainland UK? Well, you could look at gold investments. If you Google gold investments, they're in Grace Church Street in the city of London. He's a reputable precious metals dealer. He stores the metal. He'll charge you, though I'm not sure. They're not huge charges, but there will be a charge. And I'm not really sure who he's storing with. He used to have his own storage. I guess I saw that Metro Bank they have safety deposit boxes now. I went into one of them and asked, and they said, yeah, you can store anything you want there, but you have to have your own insurance. So that, and maybe also Atkinson's Bullion. You could ask him if he does storage. And the other one is the Royal Mint, which is a government entity, right? They're supposedly store your gold there. in Wales at the Royal Mint. But do you really trust them? I don't know. So that's the best I can do, advising you. Or you could keep it with Glint. It's an app where you can have gold and a debit card. They're storing the gold supposedly in Switzerland, but it's a third party, right? So that's the other one, Glint. Hope that helps. Baird and Co. I've heard of Baird and Co. Yeah, check Baird and Co. The thing to do is maybe store some of it with them, not everything. So just a couple of more questions, and then I'm gonna call it a day for the live stream today. It's only 40 minutes, but need to do something later on. So John Brown, could the price manipulation in gold be linked to the geopolitical sanctions on Iran? China can just bypass Iran sanctions by pricing oil. Well, the thing is, a lot of people have been talking about the fact that the yuan has been falling and gold's been falling, but so has the pound and the euro. The pound, you could argue the British are manipulating gold lower to keep the pound from dropping too quickly against gold. I think the gold manipulation is more, yeah, there might be something in the background between sovereign countries and the gold market, but I would say it's more to do with trying to keep the public disinterested in gold, in physical gold. They don't want people, because that's their domain. They need gold, even though they say gold is a gold standard is a barbaric relic. The central bankers and the bankers, they need gold, because without gold, their fiat money is worthless. And that's why they're bullion banks, and that's why they still keep gold reserves. Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz card. Yeah, I mean, that's a key strategic place for the oil coming out of not just Iran, but from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, from Iraq. All the oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz. So anyway, just one more question, and then I'm going to call it a day. If anyone has another question. So to summarize, the title of this live stream is Economic and Geopolitical Fog. As I said earlier, I think there's a lot of confusion, a lot of mayhem going everywhere, geopolitically, economically, and I think that's a bad sign. That means that something is going to happen bad. I don't know what it is. And as one of the viewers said, sorry, I forgot your name. You said that could be just a way to create so many problems and troubles that you can't really blame the culprits. In my opinion, the culprit is the monetary system, the central banks, the financial elite. So that's where we're at. And so just one more question. This is cool. Are there any good politicians left who stand for liberty and freedom? Well, Ron Paul, but he's retired. Rand Paul, I think he's good, but I don't think he's as good as his dad. But you never know. He's maybe a little bit more diplomatic. So there you have it. Thanks everyone for showing up for the live stream. I know it was an impromptu one, and yeah, I'll talk to you later. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.